everyone. Here's what's bothering me today. You're not going to see what we just talked about, but it was very funny. And speaking of funny things, we are here with a very entertaining Twitch streamer named Camazotz. So, Camazotz, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, ¿qué onda, compañeros? I am Camazotz. You can call me Zotz. I'm okay with Zotz. I'm onlyZotz now on Twitch.
I remember, yes.
Twitch.tv/onlyZotz is where you can find me. And yeah, I'm a Mexican content creator. I have a YouTube that's currently in the process of being retooled right now, so that's kind of like on the back end of things, but predominantly my main focus is what I do on Twitch, which has changed, I guess, kind of dramatically over the past 2 years that I've been doing this.
Well, then I guess that's probably a good place to start. So why did you get started on Twitch rather than, say, YouTube or do a podcast or something?
No, I actually did get started on YouTube first, and it's actually kind of like really, really. So I got started streaming because like I got tired of. I started doing this whole thing online because I got tired of feeling fucking helpless. Like I had joined my local branch of the IWW, and we would do like petitions and pickets, and we would help out with stuff, and we would, participate in like trying to, like union organizing, education, that sort of thing. But like, the on the ground action, just there was no fruit being born from it. Right. And at the time, like I was really into, quote unquote BreadTube, at the beginning. So listening to people like Bad Mouse and Non-Compete and Thought Slime and Contra, all the old OG stuff like 2 years ago, right when it was picking up. I was
I started the OG BreadTube. Yeah,
before everything started just getting way worse. And then I specifically remember a couple content creators, but specifically I remember EJ putting out a video. EJ of Non-Compete. EJ putting out a video talking about like the need for more like non-white voices like within this sphere, within the online thing. And I was like, fuck it, let's fucking go. Like I'll do it. Like I got shit that I need to fucking say. And I feel like there's there needs to be more radical voices like on here. Like there needs to be more people like speaking some shit, right? Because at the time there was like really like there were like Skylar Sabo had a channel, and the content she was putting out was like really fucking good, really broke down a lot of shit for me, and like so she was like really helpful with me like getting in touch with people, really connected as far as like getting like speaking to like EJ of Non-Compete, and then like helping me just kind of like hey, like just being a friend, it was really good. So as much as like her and I like don't talk as much anymore, I cannot say that she wasn't a good friend, and I mean, and that she wasn't like influential in me like getting started, like as far as like just being really supportive. And then like I initially came on and I was talking about like my first videos on YouTube was a 2-part on Jair Bolsonaro.
Oh God.
This was like back, like I put out my video on Jair Bolsonaro, and then like a couple like and then like just coincidentally like within the same like week or month or whatever that I had put it out, like it was Michael from the guy that had passed on, what's his name,
Michael Brooks from the Majority Report.
Michael Brooks had recently that like started getting talking about Jair Bolsonaro and like the Lula stuff and everything like that. And
yeah, that was a fucking saga. Jeez.
So like, and I was like, I was like, hell yeah! Like now my video, people might actually watch this now because because Michael Brooks fucking is talking about this now. People might actually want to do this because when I first started, what I wanted to do is really talk about and focus on you know issues pertaining south of the United States border, the so-called United States, I guess, as I say now. Because they're just as much as people were oh, read theory and look at what what China's doing, or look at what what's going on over here or over there, nobody's really paying attention to the atrocities and the struggles here on Turtle Island and in Central and South America. It's just they're just for whatever fucking reason, it's just more people know about, more white Western leftists know more about the struggles of Uyghur Muslims in China to the amount that they can have solid 2.5-3 hour fucking arguments and discussions on that topic, but they can't talk or articulate about the diversity of indigenous people versus any of the other migrants seeking refugee status in the United States that are currently in ICE detention facilities, or know about that, right? They don't fucking they just don't understand that, right?
Well, I think that that's in many ways partially deliberate on the part of the United States, because in what we call North America, which is basically Canada and the United States, the knowledge of, let's just say, Latin American peoples is very limited to what Americans experience the most, which is why you basically have Mexico, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. And that's basically it. Everything else is a flavor of Mexican or something, right? So Cuba is, the evil communist island off the coast. Puerto Rico is technically it's an American territory, but Latinos and they're just coming here and taking our jobs. That's bad. And Mexico, it's the same thing, but that's, it's right on the southern border, which is why we need the big, beautiful wall. And so when your only knowledge of the sheer diversity that is everywhere south of the Gulf of Mexico, that really colors a people. And so they just kind of think, this is all I kind of grew up knowing about and hearing about. So that's all they kind of know or think about. And the only things they're thinking about are, quite frankly, stereotypes that we all unfortunately grow up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to me, that was really frustrating, is it's
Same.
People, and also around that time, that's when Emma DeRudy, or if people Google that name, I don't think it'll actually come up, but Willem von Spronsen had sacrificed themselves and attacked an ICE detention facility, and was murdered by the police.
I remember that story, yeah.
And at around that time, there was two, I think at the time, bigger name BreadTubers that were talking about it. And one of them in their video ended up having to take down the video, and ended up getting a knock on their door from the NSA. And
wow.
Because in their video, which I thought was an amazing video, by the way, because I saw it the moment it came out, and I was like, wow, this is exactly the fucking energy we need right now. But it had called, in no uncertain terms, it had called for action against Donald Trump specifically. And you can't do that shit. So so unfortunately, and then that kind of fucked that person over royally, and into the future. So, but yeah, so for me, that was really fucking frustrating, because it was just I think at the time, if I remember correctly, I think at the time, like the serfs were like real. I think at the time it had happened. I think the serfs were like, this was like their first interview with Ben Burgess, and and like this was like before I had gotten to really know like what their brand was going to be, because I was really deluded when I first like got interacted. Like I thought like a lot of these people had like a lot of the like content creators had like, because they radicalized they like I was like a baby leftist, right? Like because like I had, like I said, I had just joined the IWW. I was just getting acclimated into this, and I wouldn't have gotten that. I wouldn't have joined the IWW if it wasn't for Bad Mouse or other content creators talking about them. And so it's like these people radicalized. I shouldn't say radicalized, but these people like opened my mind up to doing this stuff, right? Doing the things that I'm doing right now. And so
they were like an inspiration to you.
Yeah. And so like when I started to interact with these people, I started to realize that like, oh, they're not like that. Like it's just like, oh, I'm projecting what I want onto this person who's never, who's probably just never fucking like thought about this shit, doesn't even know about this shit, right? Like is as uneducated as everyone else is on this shit. And so it was like, so it's like, like what's their connection to this, to the things that I'm concerned about. I just, but that's the issue with being with like parasocial relationships, right? Like you don't like, like you think that, the person who you've never met, they don't know who the fuck you are, but like, because you've engaged
that's a
with
whole
their
different
shit so
kettle
much.
of fish, man. Like,
yeah. And so like, that's like, so like I learned the hard way, like frustratingly, that where it was just like, okay. And then like, where I was like, okay, these people are just regular fucking people, and they're just putting out a message. And like I had to come to the I had to like basically come to the I came to the understanding that I held now, where it's like, if like I might not agree with you, but I'm not going to stand in your way, because, or like I'm not going to obstruct what you're doing, because at the end of the day we share the same goals, right?
Yeah,
and so
that's
like,
how I tend to view things as well. It's like I don't like or agree with everyone, but that's kind of how life and society are. You have to work with people that you may not fully agree with or understand. Even like it's unfortunately part of the struggle. And it's kind of weird. Like some of what you're saying is also very similar to my story. Like I kind of got my first real bit of audience after I did a parody of Beau of the Fifth Column, and he happened to like it and retweet it and put it on his YouTube community page. And then like the next day I have several hundred subscribers. I was like, oh, okay, all right, guess I'd better be a little more serious about this. And here we are now after like 3,000. But like I am also a like Latin American person. My dad is half I forget what the term is, like Afro Latino. So he's half Afro Latino and half indigenous Latino. So he basically gets it on both ends, unfortunately. And he managed to marry my white mother, which results in this. And still, like growing up, right, I was exposed to a lot of racism, not just for like my identity as a Latino, but also other perceptions of like other Latinos and race, especially towards my dad and other darker members of my family. So, when you're 10 years old and kind of jarringly finding out about race, it kind of colors your experiences and makes you realize things that then years later, when you can finally articulate and express it to people, a lot of people, even though they're nominally progressive or leftist or whatever, aren't very receptive to it because it feels like an attack, or it's not something that they themselves have experienced. And so I feel like you're just kind of overreacting. It's like no, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's,
No,
it's like
and
you
like
have to take that deep sign, like, because it's like tone policing, right? It's like,
well,
look, well, I would agree with you, but your tone is uncalled for. It's like,
well, that's okay. So like the tone policing thing comes from fucking like from white people being like, because like the thing is, it's like we're always going to be the angry minority. Say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're like whatever you are. Like is if you are a marginalized person expressing your struggles, those with privilege are like you're challenging them. And it doesn't matter what their fucking ideology is. It doesn't matter how much they fucking agree with you. Like they're going to push back on it.
it's kind of like I guess the way I've rationalized it before is a lot of the debate bro people I'm not really huge fans of. Like I saw a bit of their stuff and was like, yeah, it's not really for me. And the thing for me is like, even if I really disagree with them, they have like absolutely garbage takes. If they, at the end of the day, and this is a big if, but if at the end of the day, they are still pulling people away from the alt-right or getting people to pause and think and reevaluate things, it's like, that's a step in the right direction. But at the same time, it's like,
but if
when does that become like outweighed by all the other terribleness,
But here's the thing though, when you are pulling those people over to the more, I'm not going to say to the left, but when you're pulling people from the right, like more left than what they are, right? And you're doing it in a way where they will like never be like harshly challenged, right? Where like you're putting them into like a safe space, right? And you're not challenging their privilege. Like you're not challenging them in a way that will lead them to truly understanding a non-white forward revolution, or like I'm not like big R in the streets, right? I'm talking about like a small R, like like movement of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people of the LGBTQIA plus community, and disabled folks. Because like honestly, from any change anywhere has come from those who have their backs to the wall by the system.
No, like the first Pride was a riot, and it was started by Marsha P. Johnson, a Black trans woman. So like,
and so like so even if like we look, if we analyze this, right, like if we look at it at the historical reality of movements, like within our borders, any sort of substantial change comes from marginalized people speaking out. And then it is because of those actions that forces the state to finally fucking do something. And then after the state finally fucking does something, then do the people who were benefiting from the privilege of us being oppressed, then they finally are just like, okay, I guess this is fine now. And then they allow it.
Yeah, that's not inaccurate.
So then here you go, right? So then you have these people who are basically coddled. They're like, the system, recognize it, like they exist inside that space that we will never really truly get, right? And so like and then like you have people who say like, well, I move them more left, right? But then how? Like you're moving them more left by what? Making them like come to the conclusion that, you know what? I'm going to let you think the N-word, but listen to me when I say don't say it out loud. Okay. Right, like, and then and like, but, and like, like you might make, you could get a little spicy with it. Maybe, maybe a little, maybe a little watermelon joke slip here or there, or a little taco vendor joke slip here and there. But, hey, understand though that, all people are important. Okay. And then, and like, they're not really being challenged on these things, they're not really being like, and if they are challenged, like it's also challenging a lot of the times a white man or a cis, it always challenges like a cis white dude on, and like, what are they going to do, right, when their position is to be a take haver, and like their takes have set a foundation of, I'm going to talk to the right, or those who are far deep in the alt-right territory. I'm going to talk to those people, and I'm going to create a leftist environment that they are comfortable in. And if I bring on, or if I start to interact with people that are going to challenge the space that I created for them, that makes me look bad. And I have to defend my position, and I have to defend my takes against the person who is telling me, why these things are bad.
Okay, so I'm actually kind of glad you bring this up, because this is something that I know I and other people have talked about at length at this point, which is that, generally speaking, the white left, if you want to call it that, definitely has a problem where, when it comes to trying to respect and give equal time to marginalized voices, there's conflict there. And I'm really glad you used the term safe space for like right-wing people being pulled left, because I do find that in general, it does feel like I'm still not sure how to fully articulate it. So bear with me, but it does kind of feel like, for a lot of these people and trying to create those safe spaces, it is about preventing any sense of white guilt. It's like, oh, no, we can't have any of that. Like, that's the big no word. And we can't have people feeling that, even though, like you said, at the slightest criticism, it'll be, well, like, oh, that's it, I'm done with the movement, I'm going back to the right. Or, oh, well, no, it's like the tone police thing. It's like, we're literally not saying that it's, bad to be white or that you're an evil person. It's just, wake up and realize that there is still a lot more work to do. I have not always been where I am now, right? Like, I remember being a shitty 16-year-old, but I grew. But in order to grow, I had to be open to receiving that criticism and being willing to learn. And also, thankfully, having, unfortunately, very patient people in my life to help me get over that. Because unfortunately, a lot of my teachers in this respect were women who unfortunately are very much used to having to coddle men to make them feel good or safe, as you say, to get them to kind of move somewhere. And it wasn't until like years later and just talking more about this stuff with people that I finally kind of realized that in retrospect. And so, yeah, I think that's a very valid criticism in terms of, sure, they're quote unquote pulling people away from the right, but then how far does that go? Is it fully meaningful? Like, there is a whole conversation there. And like, for example, here in Canada,
I've been having this conversation for fucking
sorry to rehash it, but like,
no, it deserves to be talked, because it's like, it's still not done. Like, I remember like last year, a bunch of us basically talking about like, talking about like tenets of critical race theory and like why it's important that leftists need to know. And then like, we were told, like, I literally had a Twitch emote that got yeeted by Twitch because it got reported by a bunch of fucking white people. That was a jar of mayonnaise crying in front of a book of critical race theory. That was my emote. And like, and it ended up getting reported.
That's
and then
amazing.
Like, it got reported for being political. Okay.
And, #hate crime.
Yeah. And like, so it's just like, and now those same people that I made that emote to basically represent are like having panel discussions and shit on like, like should critical, like what's like, maybe critical race theory is actually good. And like, maybe this shit. And that's just because, that's the narrative that they have to fucking fight now. So it's like, last year you were doing everything in your power to fucking argue out of having to engage with this topic. And now that it's become the fucking like banning or rally cry for fucking conservatives and alt-right, from the alt-right narrative, to start doing whatever the fuck they want. Like, now you have to fight against it, but you still don't want to listen to the people or engage with the people who were trying to talk to you about this shit last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, but this actually brings me. It reminds me of something that I forgot to mention earlier to tie in with a lot of what you've been saying. Is I find like we've been having our own kind of reckoning with that up here recently with the crimes against indigenous people in the Wet'suwet'en Yintah in BC, and like just seeing what's supposed to be the like Progressive Values Party, the NDP, just very much fall flat on its face in terms of condemning this and the actions of its provincial counterpart. And so a lot of people are kind of having that, oh, so it's all just neoliberalism. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but like the thing is that with regards to, I find personally, a lot of the debate and panels and everything, and just the talk around American politics and leftism in general, is that it's like politics is a fucking spectator sport and a game. And so everyone's trying to just get points against people. It's not about actually moving things forward and winning in any real sense of community. It's about points.
Well, yeah, it's about creating a brand, right? That's all it is. It's creating, yeah, it's participating. And like the thing is you'll see it, and God forbid you criticize somebody for creating for getting the bag, right? To use that phrase. God forbid you criticize for anyone getting the bag. And because like then you're just against them, like, oh well, we live in a society and people got to pay bills and people got to eat and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, no, I understand that, right? But like last week this motherfucker was sitting here saying, the last week this motherfucker was sitting here saying like, trans people need to or trans people need to be heard above all else. And, to what extent that, trans rights have to be recognized by the state, is up for them to determine, right? Like whatever means that they decide to take, that's up for them to determine and for us to support them, right? But then this week, you're sitting there talking about, oh, maybe kink at Pride is too much. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
and
it's just like, and so it's like, and so it's like, and then it's just kind of like, well, what the fuck what are your principles? And then it's like, oh, your principles are to whatever you're getting money for. And like you are, and that's the other thing that I kind of like, one of the reasons like why I kind of like distance myself from the political Twitch. There are still people who I fuck with, but like, a lot of other people who I just don't fuck with anymore. And it's because that they use progressive messaging to build their brand. And yes, they are, yes, there are people who will go on and explain, the real definition or, whatever of like communism or socialism to like, to normal people who are, people who aren't familiar with these things. Right. I love how you almost said normies, but decided to correct yourself. It's okay. You're allowed to say that here, man.
These people who like, who are coming in from the outside, people who like, who might have come in to watch the spectacle of AOC play games with Hassan and like other people. Right. And then, and then they're like, oh, okay. Like, and then they engage with like the fucking Twitch community and they trickle out into like the more like PC, more brand friendly, more liberal friendly spaces, or even like more centrist friendly spaces. And, and it's okay. Diversity of tactics and all that shit. Right. But,
actually, that reminds me of something that I'd like to come back to, but please continue.
Yeah. But like, so like diversity and tactics and everything like that. Right. But in the same way that we're looking at, like the debate bros who sit there and pride themselves on, I'm bringing I'm bringing former neo-Nazis over to the closer to the left. Okay. I'm opening their fucking minds. Right. And then they just become this fucking waiting room for white supremacy to, like, I don't know, eventually dissolve itself, even though you're not challenging their white supremacy in any meaningful way, because you can't even allow the concept of whiteness bad to even like enter into the discussion. Because like you had said earlier, like, oh, like, I'm not trying to say that, you know, like white people are bad. And I say that on my stream all the fucking time. White people are bad. Stop being fucking white. I fucking like, because like, here's the thing. And let me explain to this. And I spoke to this about to Bad Bunny. Because I was like, you know, like, because like that sounds scary to a bunch of motherfuckers who live within the system that we live in, especially here in the imperial core.
And also with relatives who probably believe in the Great Replacement theory.
Yeah. and the thing is, it's like, so like, but like, here's the thing, right? Whiteness is a social construct, and it is one of the main pillars in capitalism. And if we are all anti-capitalist, we have to fucking destroy the pillar of whiteness. And how do you do that? By telling people to stop engaging as white. There's no Whiteistan. There's no Whitelandia. You can't spin a globe and stop it and show me anywhere the origin of white. Like, where does that come from? Right?
Oh, well, I can like, tell you, I love my history.
Well, yeah. But I mean, like, that's the thing, though. It's like we all, like, those of us who do know where it comes from, we understand that it became a way for, you know, people for the state, like people with money, whatever you want to call it, those at the top, to, you know, separate people, you know, to slowly start to fucking like divide, you know, the working class, you know, because like, once again, as much as white supremacists like to say, you know, like the Irish were slavery too, and it's like, okay, calm, fucking chill, okay, like, you know, don't get your fucking lederhosen like up your ass. Like, calm down.
Oh, that's German.
You know,
come on, man, get your white people right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Fine, my bad. No, the Germans are right. You're right.
But like that was actually one of like my earliest videos where I was talking, because of course it came up in the discourse one day of, oh, well, how come black people are allowed black pride and white people aren't allowed white pride? And I'm like, so the main fucking reason why it's not the same is black people had to forge an identity out of blackness when they were stolen from various different corners of West Africa and brought to America and enslaved and shipped around and forced to breed with each other. And so that's why you have like black pride, because they don't know really what their tribe is. Meanwhile, in America, you can totally celebrate your Polish, Italian, German, Irish, Dutch, French, Spanish, etc. fucking heritage. And for a long time, people from Southern Europe, like Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese, etc., were not considered white. It was only until other newer immigrant groups started showing up, and when we had to start putting fucking head taxes on Chinese people immigrating of, whoa, it's like replacement there. Okay, you know what? Fine. These people, I know they're like, they're not, you know, as white as the rest of us from Northern Europe, but like Europe still. So yeah, you're all white, right? The early history of Canada is, okay, so this is where like you have the English on top, followed by the Scottish, because that was the Union of Great Britain. And then you had the Irish, but you know, you also conquered like the French part of North America, which is now Quebec. But like, you know, that's okay, sure, they're weird, they're French and they're Catholic, but still white, you know, still civilized. And so over time, right, the idea of whiteness came to be about the main European core that had been migrating over here, because it was, hey, we now need to create an established identity, you know, of us versus them being indigenous people, black people, other nations in the Americas. And it's like, that's why white pride is so fucking offensive, but black pride isn't, because they come from different places.
Okay, so you understand all that. You get all that.
Yeah, so, dude, I'm not white.
Fuck whiteness. You know, so yeah, I'm mad when people can sit there and try to say that they're, you know, like that, like, yeah, like, no, like, you know, like you're racist you're racist towards me because I'm white. You don't like me because I'm white. I don't like your whiteness. I don't like your white identity. your white identity can go fuck itself. Like, you are so like, and then because it's
If
like,
I
and
had
it's just like,
pearls, I'd clutch them as a liberal. Like, geez,
yeah, like
dropping
it's
too many
like
spicy takes here.
it's like fuck, like fuck your white identity, because like, here's the thing, right? Like, if you are able to trace your family's roots to whatever respective European country that they come from, right? And you were able to engage with the history of your heritage, of your people, right? That was robbed from you because you became part of the blob of white that stripped you of your identity, that stripped you of your who you were as a person, right? Even the fucking myth, right, of, or whatever, the urban legend or whatever, if I don't even know if it's true or not, but like the thing where it's like people came over and were like brought through Ellis Island, and if your name wasn't able to be said in English easily, you it'd be like, oh, you're Jorgensen, no, I can't say Jorgensen, you're Johnson now, and then move you on, right?
I
It's
have
just
no
like
idea.
like white people, like that's a story that I remember hearing about, like like Ellis Island shit, like people coming in, like being immigrated. And so it's like white people can hear that shit, and people who identify as white, they can hear that shit, and they don't see that as a travesty. They don't see that as an erasure of the people who sacrificed, or like were running away from something, we're running away from poverty, we're running away from something to come to the United States to risk that fucking thing, right? They can't piece that to fucking together, that they were literally pushed through a system that was robbing them of their identity, and then like when they got over here and they tried to express their identity, try to cook their own food, fucking celebrate their holidays, all this shit, those weren't American, whatever those weren't part of that my good old US of A, so it's like, okay, now how do we whitewash these people? What do we do, right? Okay, well, we have freed blacks, so now we have to, so we'll start giving these people better pay so that they can start differentiating themselves from the black and Latinos and like all these other people that are coming who are a little bit darker than they are, and we'll still treat them a certain way. Now, mind you, I will say, the people who still like when you look at like more contemporary times, like as we get closer, look at the white races that are still like, I shouldn't say white races, look at the European races that are still treated like shit, both overseas and within the northern borders. We're talking about, Slavic, like Eastern European, peoples and Romani peoples, right?
Oh, dude, like, I worked with a guy like back in the day. He was from Northern England. We're all working in the like aviation industry, I guess is the proper term for it. And he was talking like very almost romantically about this motorcycle ride he and his wife did through Pakistan, and they just fell in love. And so when he came back to Britain, he had this newfound like respect for the Pakistani people. His quote that came to mind was, "I've got no problem with Moses, mate." And I remember thinking like, okay, like that's cool, I guess, whatever. And then like 2 weeks later, it was announced that Romania was joining the European Union. And so that meant that all these Romanians could be like now freedom of movement throughout the European Union. And he just said like, fucking Romania is going to come and ruin fucking everything. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And another woman I met when I was living in Spain, she was there with her Syrian German boyfriend, and there was like a Sri Lankan Finnish guy / American guy. So it's like us, and then there's me, the Canadian Latino. So it's like these 3 brown guys and this 1 white girl. But she said, "Well, I'm also non-white. I'm part Romanian." I'm like in my head, I'm just like, I can hear the gears turning of like, did I hear this woman correctly that she's not white because she's part Romanian? And so that's just like you said before, it touches on that construct of whiteness and what I said earlier about how a lot of people from Southern Europe weren't considered white for the longest time until it became convenient or necessary to preserve the idea of whiteness because of immigration. And so
yeah, it's
like even today in Europe, it's like here's this guy who's like, oh no, like, you know, Muslims and various immigrants, like, that's perfectly fine. But Romanians, no, they're gonna ruin the country. And other people saying, yeah, no, I'm not white, I'm part Romanian. It's like, so having met a bunch of Romanians in my life, most of y'all are very white. Like, it absolutely is, like you say, it's a social construct, and it is so weird and destructive. Like, why set up those arbitrary boundaries, especially in what is Europe? Like, there's this whole idea of like, oh, the East, it's Slavic and very backwards. I'm like, so there's like a whole bunch of historic reasons and stuff, but like, it just seems so arbitrary and silly. At the end of the day, I know it comes down to power dynamics, right? Like, that's why, you know, the British and their colonization of North America, it's like, this is why we're at the top and the rest of you fucking suck. Even if you're other, you know, Europeans, you are clearly inferior to us, but you seem relatively civilized, so like, that's fine. You know, great power status, we got the empires around the world, okay, you've earned my begrudging respect. Like, it is so weird. And only do we finally see the like rise of what could be called whiteness in the modern era after they realize, oh wait, no, this imperialism thing is actually kind of coming back to bite us in the ass, and they don't like that.
But the thing is, it's just like, so like the white identity, right? This fucking virus that was created, this virulent identity that was created here and like really built upon within the so-called United States has now spread over to Western Europe and has spread to other places, you know, and that's where you start seeing more people who are like, you know, becoming like white supremacists, like specifically comparing themselves, you know, to like this great West, you know, that's where Western chauvinism is, right? That's why Western chauvinism has become a dog whistle for white supremacy, because it's basically the same fucking shit, right?
I'm also getting the same vibe with toxic masculinity, where there's people who are like, it's toxic masculinity that built the West. I'm like, no. What?
Yeah, it all falls into the same thing. But like, you know, and once again, patriarchy plays all into it. Like but that's my point, right? So it's just like, so going back to like initially what I was saying, where, you know, you're bringing these people over, but you're not challenging them on their white supremacy. You're not actually challenging them on their white supremacy, because like a majority of the people that are toting themselves as like spreading the leftist message, like they're this fucking great like oracle or messiah of fucking communism or whatever the fuck it is, or, you know, whatever anti-capitalism means to them. And, you know, how us marginalized people, we need to be so grateful that they're able to pull in these numbers and get the recognition that they have, because, you know, they're really doing the work, you know. But in the same time, it's just like, you're not allowing us to then enter into your space with the same amount of, you know, I guess safety that you allow these people in too. Because it's like, okay, you've brought them in, now let me fucking tell them about, you know, hey, not identifying as white anymore. But it's like, and like getting in touch with like who they really are, and like what makes them important, and like what makes their history important against. And then they start realizing how like they are conquered peoples too. They are part of the meat grinder of imperialism and colonialism that has gone through, because there are still indigenous people within Europe. Like there are like indigenous Russians, there are indigenous like Finnish people, you know, there are people
the Sami across like northern Scandinavia. They're across, I think, like Finland, Norway, Sweden, and like even part of Russia up at the very top there.
Yeah, they chase reindeer, like they hunt reindeer, you know what I mean? Like it's like, and like they travel like that way, and they are looked down upon. They have pejorative terms over there against them. Like they are seen as being quote unquote backwards, you know? And so it's like, And it's like these the people over here in the Imperial Core, they're missing that. They don't, I don't know what can be said to them that hasn't already been said, that just isn't clicking for them to just be like, oh wow, I'm doing more harm than good. Like
I don't know. Which I mean, like if I can use that as a pivot, like there's plenty more things I'd love to ask you and like get your thoughts on, and also just find out, like if that's okay, because like again, I don't know what to say to these people sometimes. Like I get comments on YouTube or in replies on Twitter, and it's like, where do we even begin? Like, I don't know.
Like it's like, I can't, like, I don't even know. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like, I kind of gave up, I guess, like, to kind of pull it back into like my, me, like my progression through this, leftist content creation nonsense. I started, like, one of my main things in the beginning was like, okay, I'm not hearing the things that I think that need to be heard. I'm not seeing the content that I feel like is actually getting people over that line to actually start making material changes around them. Right. There's like, so like in the IWW, right, we say, there's if we're unionizing a place, we use the thing of AEIOU, right? So agitate, inoculate, agitate, educate, inoculate, organize, unionize, right? So it's so like it's really easy. So people, for the most part, realizing imbalances and in the system and unjust hierarchies and all these things, right?
You've discovered the purpose of my channel. I'm just venting about stuff that bothers me.
So it's like, so people are agitated, okay, right? And then education, right? So education is then like, well, you're upset and you're mad because you're alienated from your labor. You're upset and agitated because you realize like all these things, and here is why, right? And so that's where you start seeing, then that's where the good work comes in from people like, Mildred and EJ and Luna, and hell, even ContraPoints back in the day, and PhilosophyTube, and like all these people who were like really like putting in, complex ideas to like make a starting point for people to dive into it more as they get it, for people who want to be more
like people who want to take the next step and sort of figure out where to go from the starting point.
Okay. And then and so it's just like, okay, but then like, how do we get, but then it stops there. And then you just have a bunch of people who are feeling helpless and burnt out. And like, there was no direction and everything like that. So one of the things that I started doing is I started to do live streams and stuff. Cause this was around the time where like you started seeing like, the worldwide, strikes for the worldwide environmentalist strikes,
the
right?
climate strikes,
the climate strikes and everything,
and like school walkouts as well, like the thing that Greta Thunberg started.
So then I was doing live streams and stuff like that, and answering questions and sending people links to like get and I was doing these on YouTube. I wasn't even on Twitch yet, and I was doing these things where people were I was like, here's the map, here's the website, here's everything that you need to know. If you don't want to do the work, I'll fucking do the work for you. Here's my email. I will fucking find you your local whatever the fuck, get there and start networking with people. Get out there, go there, fucking, what?
Doing the real work of a comrade.
This is a really weird time that I don't want to see the left let fall through their fingers, because there's no, whatever, like, I don't want this. And it ended up doing that, right? Like, it ended up being like a flash in the pan. I mean, it ended up being fucking co-op, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, whatever, we knew that was going to happen, so, but I mean, like, still, it got, my main intent was to like get people at least out there to see what a fucking protest looks like, you know, because like once again the Floyd rebellion had started yet, you know, so this was like the first thing for like people to actually like get involved, go take part in a march, go fucking, you know, meet up with like the local organizations that will hopefully be there, you know, like, you know, just interact with it. Like this is these are worldwide protests. Get in it, you know. And then that ended up getting me through the help of Skylar, getting me on to talk up to EJ and Luna, which was really funny because like, so like for like the first year and a half or so that I was doing my channel, I was masked up. I never showed my face. I wore a bandana. I wore a luchador mask.
I remember seeing like a clip of that. Yeah.
For the longest time, you know, that's what I went to go grab earlier. I wore this bat mask because Camazotz is part of the mythology, or is part of Mayan mythology. So like this a lot of my stuff was done behind this mask until I finally like took it off.
So actually, why the name Camazotz? Because like, isn't that the Mayan bat god of death or something like that?
Yeah. So like, when I was trying to figure out like my channel, like what I wanted to do, I had an artist friend here in the city, and who I'd known since high school, and I loved his work. I absolutely fucking adored his work. Like it was like really, I love the way he drew shit. Very like visceral, like he designed my logo, like the bat logo.
It's a good logo
that I have. And yeah, and like, you know, and designed my rant Sona, not my first Sona, my rant Sona.
Actually, sorry, I have to tell you.
I saw the comment.
Okay.
I saw the comment.
Okay, you know, so for those that are aware, there was a comment on a video where like I was shouting out like a tweet or like a little clip of a stream that you had done. I was like, yeah, no, he's absolutely right here. And by the way, go, you know, follow and subscribe to Camazotz. And someone said Camazotz is a fur, and I'm like, okay, and like.
It's a meme, okay? I'm assuming it's somebody in my community that like or like my community adjacent, that like, you know, it's that's the thing. So
wait, no, we can do a poll, official poll for this video. What is Camazotz's true fursona? Is it the bat god or is it Bulbasaur?
Oh god damn it! Oh, the evil you've wrought now. But yeah, so like I covered my face. No, you're fine. I'm all good. I'm all good with it. It's but no, like that's that, you know. So it's like I wore the mask and didn't show myself because I, at the time too, I was trying to organize my place of employment, and I didn't want, you know,
to have that come back and bite you.
Yeah. I wanted plausible deniability that it wasn't me, you know, that because it's like, that person's masked up. Like, you can't tell if that's me or not. I don't care if it sounds like me. You can't say that that's me, you know? And then like once the real world stuff kind of like died down and like things didn't work out as much, I was just like, and then like around the time too, I was getting, I mean, I'm radical enough. Like, obviously, like I'm sitting here talking about, you know, I have no qualms with saying like destroy the United States empire. You know, I don't have qualms with saying, destroy whiteness, you know, anything like that. These things already lend me to not being friendly onto other content creators' platforms. Like, a lot of people, when I would talk, like it, I was like, I felt like the moped, right? Fun to ride, but nobody wanted to admit that they would, you know, nobody wanted to be seen riding me, you know. Nobody, like
there's a sex joke in there, so this video is totally getting demonetized.
And so like so in order for me to like kind of like expand the messaging of what I wanted to talk about, and like, because I really felt like, you know, more like people really needed to like really understand, because like around the time, this is also around the time when like Chile was going through its big general strike to like renegotiate its constitution, and like, you know,
I just
they were
call
having
that a
their riots and
revolution.
stuff
Like what happened in Chile was basically a revolution.
for the most part, yeah, no, I agree with you there. This was around the time when, Bolivia, and like I was covering all of these things, and I really wanted to be able to talk about them. So I wanted to be taken, I guess more seriously. I mean, as seriously as I can, being surrounded by Bulbasaurs. But I mean, like, it's like, but it's like so I took the mask off. Like, it was like, I'm like, so that I can actually be like more interactive with people, so
People
that I
would
can
feel
actually
more of a connection, even if it's just a parasocial one.
yeah, exactly. And like, not even that, just like other content creators, like being able to like being like, okay, let's have this person on, and then it's just like I come on and I'm wearing this fucking like, this bat mask, which I mean, I dig it. I didn't get rid of it. It hangs, it sits on the shelf behind me. But before all that, sorry, I'm jumping around. This is kind of funny, and then we can like totally like get off the origin story. One of the funny things is so you had initially asked me, we started talking about Twitch, right? So I put out a video. I put out my big video, like my first like really big video essay, because the Bolsonaro 2-parter was, it was fine, it was good. And then I did another video on how to make agitprop and like all these other things. And then I put out a video on the EZLN, like the formation of the EZLN and the Zapatistas and stuff like that, basically covering everything from the Mexican Revolution, and then like kind of what led to, the formation of the Chiapas territory currently and stuff like that. And I put that video out, and then I got eyeballed. And then also around that time, I was doing this show on YouTube called Unidos, where I would bring on different marginalized people, and we would basically have like a discussion on bridging gaps in our intersectionality, like, and figuring out, because like, like you had mentioned earlier about like, you talked about colorism, like with your father and stuff like that, right? So it's like, and which is like a huge thing, like, machismo, colorism, racism, all that stuff is very as much prominent as it's over here in the so-called United States and Canada. It's also prevalent down south, like all over the Americas, north and south. Like it's fucking everywhere.
That was imported by their European masters. Like,
exactly.
I could honestly like rant about Latin America and its problems and why they're ultimately the fault of Europeans for like hours. But I don't think we have the time for that. Another time we can just get together.
Spent the last year and a half doing that. But like we talked about it, and I had I met some really awesome people that were like really, I made some great connections. People like Deadman Animations.
Like I would have loved to have known about that earlier. Like, Jesus.
It's like one of those things where I actually dropped it because like it was just really hard to kind of like get to maintain a constant cast of people to like be on it. And like, I kind of think I'm just like, I'm pretty sure like I could probably do it again now and have a constant cast of people. But at the same time, like, I got so much on my plate right now that I'm trying to juggle that, like trying to do that as well, trying to start that up again. But yeah, like, so Nidos was cool. We had people like young Simba on there, Jet Cloud, fucking Saber, Deadman Animations, Joey, or Neoputa, or what, or Neo Duenden, or whatever he goes by now on Twitter. Different, every, like, basically any, like, everyone, like, people who we had disabled comrades on there. Like, it was just like all these things, and the discussions we would have, like Silver Spook, Leah Kai, like all these different people who currently, like, they're not necessarily big content creators, but they were talking, like, the discussions we would have would be on like legit shit, like, and like basically talking about like how we can like how do we carry on a conversation with each other, and what's the space that we create with each other, because we are not being listened to by our white contemporaries, like our white counterparts. Like, so it's like, so it's like, so they're not going to get out of our way. How are we going to work together to push them out of our way and make them, walk with us or get behind us, sort of thing. Because we have to, because there are gaps of intersection. There are gaps within the intersectionality where people like, where prejudices just always are going to be there. How do we work through them, and then, I did Unidos, and then, I got eyeball zoned, and, I went from, like a couple hundred, people to 3,000 or close to 3,000 people or whatever. And I was just like, in a fucking like over a weekend, and I was like I'm sitting,
all of a sudden it's like, oh, things are kind of more serious now.
I was just like, holy shit, like what the fuck happened? And then like and then like it was like funny because like I just started doing things on Twitch, so it's like I abandoned the YouTube and like
it's like, thanks for the eyeballs, bye.
And I just like went to Twitch because Lance was just like, like, hey, like Twitch is open, like you probably have a better time like coming over to Twitch, and whatever, blah blah blah, and like getting raided into and stuff like that. So like I was able to like still like, with my connections with EJ and a bunch of other people, like Mildred and just like Lottie Blakes, like all these other people like on there that I ended up making friends with. I was able to like slowly like start like getting people to like pay attention and listen to politics and news that was happening throughout, the Americas, and that was, for me, it was like, okay, this is cool, and then things just kind of, and then like like the Floyd rebellion happened, like the Floyd rebellion happened, and I thought like it was like, like this is gonna be like, this is a huge fucking turning point for us, like as leftists. Like this is something like this proves literally everything that like that myself and other people have been saying, since we came into this space, where it's just like the revolution is going to come from, or is going to be led by people of color, Black people, right? And it was, and like, like shit hit the fan, and like things were going out there, and like, you saw the formation of autonomous zones, not necessarily the Chaz Chop thing or whatever. There was also the occupation of Floyd Square in Minnesota that fucking stayed for a really long time. Like I think the Floyd Square zone or whatever was literally just finally taken down like last, or like at the beginning of this year or something like that.
I feel like it was in like spring or summer, just a few months ago, actually.
Yeah, it was like, and so it's like, and I'm not to say that it was like necessarily like an autonomous zone, but they weren't allowing, like they were literally like, they were just like, their slogan was just like, no justice, no street. Like they occupied that whole fucking territory where George Floyd was murdered, and they weren't giving that shit up, as much as like the city was trying to do whatever it was. But I mean, like,
well, actually, on that note, another positive thing to come out of Minneapolis was like, even though it was arguably ground zero of the Black Lives Matter movement, and the city initially was like, oh yeah, no, we're going to charge these guys and we're totally going to defund the police. Citizens there have been very disappointed with the reforms that have happened, which have basically been non-existent. But in response to that, it's been the kind of, all right, well then fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. Like that kind of Thanos at the end of like, all right, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So what a lot of people in Minneapolis have been doing now is they're building community safety networks where they're calling each other instead of the police, ultimately attempting to try and make police useless and a redundancy. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, like one of the things that I would talk about too is like establishing a neighborhood watch, and not in like the fucking like psyop fucking, nosy neighbor type, shit.
Like, get the shotgun. I was like, what you doing here, boy? Like, not that crap.
Like, no, not that type of shit, but like, just being able to like, but just once again, talking to your neighbors, like on your block and your community, like, so that, like if something happens, you can go to them, and they know, like, like if your house is on fire, right, like you can, like, your kids can know that they can go across the street, and they can just go over to your neighbor's house. Like they just, like, they know exactly who they can go to, like it. Or if like or if you notice that that somebody who doesn't live on your block is peeking through the side of your neighbor's house, you know, and you can text them and just be like, hey, do you have like an electrician coming today? Do you have whatever? No? Okay, well, there's somebody looking in your windows. Let me go talk to them or whatever, right? And this, like, knowing and having the safety to know that, like, that shit is going to be taken care of. That's the type of shit that's the dual power structures that we need to be creating everywhere. And so, like, yeah, so I mean, like, that's the type of shit that, like, I'm still about that. That's more towards like what I'm actually gearing my channel now to, or towards now. Like so like I said, like I stopped doing Twitch politics, which means that I don't interact with people who circle themselves around the debatosphere. Like, I'm not going to drop names because I know you want to reach out to people, but like there's people out there. The goal is
like, look, we all ultimately, like you said near the beginning, we ultimately want the same things, which is a better, more fair, more egalitarian society, diversity of tactics. Like I know there's some nuance with that, of course, but like,
I'm just saying, me personally, there's a couple people who I would piss on their sneakers before I said hello to them. But like,
that's a great term. I've never heard that before. Is that a Midwestern thing?
I don't fucking know. I just don't want to be the typical, like, this anarchist always resorting to violence, that is, it's comical,
it's like, oh, look, we're either anarchists who don't know what we're doing, or we're simultaneously the most destructive terrorists that the world has ever seen. It's like,
yeah, that's right.
Which is it?
Yeah. So so the best thing I could say is it's just like I don't interact. I try my best not to, like, at least like start like, or like inviting those people that do, like, into my community, like, anymore. So like I've cut ties or cut interactions with like a lot of people, and it has financial, or I shouldn't say financial, well, financially, yeah, like financially, both, or how do I say this? Because, like, so the social capital, right, that I benefited from has hurt, and the financial capital that I had through that, right, also hurt. But I have a full-time job outside of this, so it's like for me, the Twitch checks and everything like that, and like the small donos here and there weren't really like
it
like they weren't paying my bills or whatever,
right?
Yeah, it was like I was doing this for the messaging anyways, and I'm going to do, so what do I want to do if I don't want to interact with Twitch politics, but I don't want to stop being political, and I just don't want to stop being radical, right? So it's like I still have homies that I hang out with. I still will still cover fucking news from the global South. I will still talk about. I
appreciate. Not enough people do that, so thank you for doing that.
I do, I will, like, my biggest fucking, the biggest bug up my ass right now is Colombia. Like, I really wish people would fucking talk more about Colombia.
I talked about it for a while, but it was like people stopped watching after a while. Like, God damn it.
Yeah. No, it's really fucking frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah, so it's just like, my channel now is I've taken all the revenue that I get through Twitch now, all the bits, donos, subscriptions, all that shit, all revenue generated from Twitch now goes into a separate account. And I use it now towards buying food and packaging to feed the houseless and food insecure in my immediate community. And I'm doing that through, I've set realistic goals for myself, because I'm just basically doing it out of my kitchen. On my streams that I have going, like I've been doing streams, where I'm cooking, we do food prep, and then the next day we do like actually like putting it all together. We actually 2 weeks ago, I did my first food distribution. The week before before the United States, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, ours was back in
I did
October.
yeah, we did I did a food distro, where, I had another fellow wobbly, come in and help me package and make sandwiches and, do all that other stuff. And then, all on stream, we did it all on stream. And like, that's basically what I'm doing. And then like, if I'm not in the kitchen, I'm doing whatever the fuck I want to do on my channel,
It's
like if I
important
want
to
to
have
fucking play
fun.
games. Yeah, if I want to play games, or I want to, talk about, if I want to watch some random fucking video, if I want to watch anime now and just like do whatever, like that's what I'm gonna do. But I'm just gonna save it for the work that I need to do, for the real work, because it's like, I'm tired of fucking like trying to educate people who don't give a fuck, and who are just going to use me as a stepping stone, or use the people who I connect them with to basically step off their faces so that they can constantly build their brand higher and higher, so that they can continually make profit and off of them. I don't want to see my friends hurt. I don't want to see my connections being exploited. We shouldn't be exploiting each other. We should be working together. And
That's a good message.
And and so the more people that I see like burned by political Twitch streamers, I just don't, that's not the look that I want. I don't want to be like, yes, absolutely, go do work with this person, and then watch them be like, oh, you had to delete your, or you had to fucking basically delete your whole fucking Twitter account, or you had to like nuke that, or like just not, or you had to create a whole new one, and to just not whatever. I'm so sorry. I did not expect that to happen for you. That was not my intent. Or, like, oh, you're being brigaded by fucking chuds because you went on this thing and this person doesn't give a shit about you anymore now that they heard your opinion. I'm so sorry. Like, you know what I mean? I'm tired. I was tired of fucking saying sorry to people, or I was tired of saying I fucking told you so, and it was just like, and that's should not be what any of us are about, coming on here talking about socialist politics, or whatever it is, anti-capitalist politics, or anything like that. We should be focusing our attention on having some sort of unified message. We should be focusing our attention on actually trying to get shit ready for the inevitable climate catastrophes that are happening around us. And like, we should be fucking figuring out like what like what's going to be what's going to be our propaganda of the deed, like, not to be fucking,
this is like a lot of the work that I'm doing in the background when I'm not online or at my actual job.
But
a lot of it revolves around food security and networking.
Yeah, and like that's my thing. Is it's just like, like, so like for me, like so like when I would do, so like my fundraisers, right? Like the fundraisers that I would do on my streams,
which
were never for.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that shortly. But sorry, please continue.
No. So the fundraisers I would do for my streams would be for smaller local orgs. Like even before I stopped doing before I started interacting with Twitch politics, I was doing like, I wouldn't do massive fucking like, like things for like Tiltify, or major big charity organizations, NGO type shit. Like I wouldn't do that, because like, in my opinion, my thing is, it's like, if I'm about talking about creating dual power structures, if that's my messaging, if my messaging is establishing the framework in your own area around you, because the only way that we can truly challenge or allow breathing room for the rest of the world to take position against the imperial core is by frustrating from within it how am I going to do that? Am I going to be doing that by fucking fundraising for some faceless company who, like, I don't know what they're doing with the money, or like, you know, whatever it is, or or like, would it be better to use my platform to do for stuff where like I can actually see real tangible things happening in my community and start bringing attention to the more jaded offline activists who don't see the potential in online activism or online action, because they think that everybody online is a bunch of fucking larpers, or they're just they think that it's just a bunch of kids who are
armchair
misguided.
leftists is the term.
Yeah, like that type of shit. So it's like, and you know, and it was like, no, I want to bridge the gap between online offline spaces. I want to, you know, fix my area. I want to help create those structures. I want to help contribute to the solidarity economy and the solidarity network that we already have here in Milwaukee, that my branch of the IWW contributes to, you know? So it's like, so yeah, so like I would do smaller fundraisers like in like off my channel, and you know, and I think that while it's rougher going as far as like raising like tens of thousands of dollars or whatever, you know, I'm still fucking grateful, because it's like the small organizations who I have helped or I have fundraised for, that even if it was like $3,000, $800 to Black and Pink, like was just like fucking massive, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the type of shit that I wish more people online, especially with larger platforms, would take note of, you know? Like,
well, yeah, and I completely agree. And like, in fact, I think our first time actually interacting was on I think it was We're in Hell and Chill Goblins raising money for residential school survivors here in Canada. I think that was like the first time you and I like actually interacted and were quote unquote on stream together. But like I've seen like some of your streams before, like when you had been on a panel with someone, or like did like an interview, I think with like the Surfs or possibly even Dylan Burns. But
I don't think I've never done anything. Okay, I had a debate with Dylan Burns a long time ago.
Okay, then it's probably with this. Okay,
I was brought on the Surfs once to talk about the Destiny Gusano thing, and
okay, so, maybe that's what I saw.
Maybe which all props to Lance on that one for letting me come on and spit my shit. I think that was I'll give him a thumbs up for that, because that was
Lance is good.
That was very nice. That was very nice of him to let me fucking come on in that moment and talk my shit, because yeah, I appreciate it.
But like anyway, so like that was like our first real interaction, and that was still amazing. And I remember after like the fundraiser ended and I was sharing it on social media and also with like friends in real life, like, look at what we did, right? Like, sure, ultimately, if you look in terms of how much funding these communities need, it's a drop in the fucking bucket. But the words of encouragement that especially Indigenous people themselves said of like, thank you for like, you know, a bunch of settlers like hosting this and giving time and space to Indigenous people, but also for other people who were Indigenous or not Indigenous coming on, like raising money online, offline for the cause and bringing people to the stream to see these people, hear these stories and raise money and awareness. Like, it's amazing. Thank you so much. So they were all really appreciative. And also recently in my push to 3,000 subscribers on this channel, it also kind of just turned into a accidental fundraising thing. And so I was like, yeah, you know what, let's make this interesting. If I get the 300 subs necessary by the end of November, I'll donate $300 to Halifax Mutual Aid, which builds tiny shelters for the homeless population there, because Lord knows the fucking city's not going to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then, you know, other people were saying, yeah, you know what, I'm going to match it. And others in like my community and Reverend Ed Trevor's community said, you know what, I'll also donate $100. And so all of a sudden it became like up to $1,000 that was going to the way of this mutual aid society, just from like a handful of tweets is how it started, and a push for, you know, if you want to call it a vanity project on this channel. Yeah, give me the 3,000 subs and like, here's money for a good cause. Right. And it just became so much more than that. And it was really beautiful to see.
Yeah,
That's the
that's the type of
kind
shit
of
that that's the type of shit that should be happening, to be quite honest. And it
yeah,
does happen a
and like
lot
that's the
online.
shit that just
It
gives
does,
me
it does.
life.
Yeah, no, that's, and I will say that, like, once again, like I said earlier, like I was like, when I was out doing stuff with, I like when I was first with the IWW, and we're standing out in the fucking cold getting signatures for a petition to shut down the Milwaukee Secure Detention Facility, and like we're doing all these things, and it's like I'm talking, and like I get like whatever, like 150 signatures, and I've talked to, like, or like another fucking thing where we're trying to do something else for iWalk, and we're getting, we're getting talking with like 400 different people, and like sure, like we get some emails, we get this or whatever, but like it's, what does that really do? You know what I'm saying? Like it was like,
It's limited.
it's sure, it gives us some callbacks, but like MSDF still stands. There's still, we're just still unjust shit in the prison system here in Wisconsin, as well as across everywhere else in the country. But I mean, like, it was just like, it wasn't, and I'm not saying like I'm not looking for instant gratification. It was just like one of those things where it was just like, what is this doing? Like what is, like, what, how are we, like, what's this email list actually doing? Like, how are we,
No, I understand. I sympathize, because there was an article I remember reading like a couple of years ago now, before I started doing any of this stuff. And it really hit on something that I remember feeling after certain protests and actions in the past, but I couldn't articulate until finally I read this article. And this article was talking about how, what is that feeling when after a protest, but you feel like nothing's happened except that a bunch of people got some kind of ego satisfaction of, well, you see, I'm doing my part and showing that I don't stand for it, but there's no meaningful action or ways of changing it past that. And it was like a form of like virtue signaling or something of just, no, see, look, we're out here and I'm showing my moral superiority because, see, don't you know that I care? It's like, cool, but like, what are you doing to meaningfully address that moving forward? Like, what are you doing to improve whatever it is, gender equality, accessibility, public transit, the greenification of cities, reducing homelessness, poverty. Like, instead of just showing up to a march and marching around being like, yeah, I don't stand for this. Okay, what have you done with that and with that energy moving forward? And like, there have been other protests where it's like, hey, like, I want you to talk to like the person next to you. If you don't know them, introduce yourself to them. And I want you to like, make some meals together or start a veggie patch together, like whatever it was just like a little start of something to take that energy of people like, I'm here and I'm mad, what do I do about it? It's like, you can do these things, talk to these people, support these businesses, go and do these things. And it's like, yeah, as opposed to like, aren't we all mad? Yeah, great. And like, I'll admit I'm kind of guilty of this on my channel, where I just rant about what's pissing me off and don't always offer solutions. Sometimes I do. It's kind of just like me venting. But, there's always that feeling at some of these protests of just, so what did we accomplish here other than like just showing up and saying we're mad? Like,
well, yeah. And like, and that's the other thing too, is it's just like, in my opinion, good protest forces non-participants to pay attention. So, and that's not like on the news or whatever. That's like the immediate people, like the people who's the community that's it's affecting, right? So that's one of the shutting down highways is very effective,
But unfortunately, the state has now said, oh, you know what? You can totally run over those protesters. It's like,
yeah,
what the fuck?
Yeah, that's it's once again, that comes down to like a whole thing with, no matter what, because the state has a monopoly on violence, they can determine what is and what isn't violent. And that's a whole deeper thing. But I'm just saying,
know, like again, we could talk about stuff like this till like the end of the world.
Good protests, gets people to like, like if you're doing a picket, like a job picket, right? And outside of a factory, right? The goal is to get the people who are working inside that factory to stop working. You know, it's to get, or if you're doing a picket outside of a, you know, outside of a store, the idea is to get shoppers to stop shopping there, right? Like that's the point of it, right? A large protest is supposed to be inconvenient to those who try to ignore it so that things can change. But more often than not, they become co-opted by, you know, people who are like, oh, but think about the optics. If we make people late for work, they're just going to be mad at us. Or, you know, oh, you got to stick to the sidewalk because, you know, we don't want to. And it's just like, no. Like, you're not letting me throw a fucking Molotov. At least make me fucking stop this person from going into Starbucks. All right? Give me something. I've
said before, like it's a now new personal favorite phrase of mine is we need to talk to capitalists in a language they understand, which means we need to affect their pocketbook.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. But yeah, like going back to it, yeah, like, so I mean that, and so that leads me back to like the whole thing where it's like that's one of the reasons why my fundraising kind of ties into like that principle of mine, where it's just like I want to be able to affect change. I want to frustrate the system as much as I can, because that's the only, and like, you know, using what small of a platform I have, you know, allows me to do that. Like I'm going to make the fucking most of it. If, you know, sure, like I'm not, you know, I'm not a partnered streamer and I'm not whatever, but like, you know, I feel like there's I feel like enough people have had like whispers of like what the fuck, you know, I'm about, and hopefully that they find their way to my station and they want to help out with that, and then they're inspired to go to try to do something themselves in their area. Or if they're another streamer that they, you know, like, you know, like maybe do that like one big streamathon with like, you know, like 15, you know, different fucking people, and like where you're going for like, you know, like a couple, you know, like tens of thousands of dollars to send to like a big like major charity or whatever. But like, you know, if you're truly about that shit, if you're truly about that change, and, you know, start looking at the local organizations around you that might need something. You might, you know, like for example, there might be a tenants organization in your area that's like trying to get fucking started, or like needs help, or like is started and just needs like funds for like whatever. And then you give, like, that's what I, you know, that's what I did. Like the Milwaukee Autonomous Tenants Union, we raised like, I think it was like $3,000 for them. And it was literally like 7 volunteers that were trying to manage all of these fucking evictions and all these people, but then, and helping in the city. And a majority of the fucking funds were coming directly out of their pockets. And if it wasn't coming out of their pockets, it was being petitioned from like the DSA or the IWW or the other organizations that these individuals were part of. And like, they would have to wait for those funds or whatever. Right. And then when it was just like, hey, I have this, I'm this weirdo online. I want to raise money for you all. You know, are you okay if I do this? And they were just like, oh, absolutely, or whatever. And then they were just, their minds were fucking blown, you know, and it was just only like a couple $1,000s, you know?
Yeah, but it was great. And actually that was one of the things that I had said earlier, that I wanted to come back to. You actually raised $8,700 for the Milwaukee IWW. So yeah, I'd say that's pretty impressive on your part, and also your community for coming together to do that for the workers.
Well, yeah, it was, I mean, a little selfish. I mean, like I said, it's for my branch, but it's for a union hall, which we ended up getting. It's literally the union hall that Twitch helped fucking get, like which is like great. Dope as fuck. Yeah, like, and because like, and you know, there's not a whole lot of like physical spaces for, you know, radical organizations to like, for the communities that they exist in to like go to, you know, like we were holding meetings and stuff before the plague hit, but you know, we would be going to public libraries
times.
In the before 4 times. Yeah. we were going to like libraries, or we were going to like student unions and like, on college campuses, and just meeting like basically coffee shops, wherever the fuck we could, like we would have our meetings at, you know what I'm saying? But like, and like, we would have like all of our flags and our megaphones and like all of our propaganda, all of everything was like spread out between like 12 different people's houses and shit like that. And
Jeez, yeah.
there's just like nothing, like somebody had all our fucking sound equipment for like for doing like all of our audio equipment, shit like that. And so, but now we have a home, now we have a space, and we were able to renovate it. It's still like a work in progress. It's funny because like it took a long time to get all the right permits and all the right people to sign off to make the permits official. And then like, contractors to go in and like tell us like, okay, well, this is blah, blah, blah. So yeah, no, it's
the due process.
Yeah. But I mean, right now, like I can say that, that definitely like blew the minds of a lot of people, a lot of old people, and a lot of like jaded,
bitter old communists.
Yeah. That were just like that thought that, cause like, I was just like, yeah, like I'm, like, oh, I do this thing on Twitch, and they were just like, okay, yeah, that's cute, I guess. Like, whatever.
They're junior.
Like, yeah, exactly. And then I was just like, hey, check this out. And then they're just like, oh shit, okay, yeah, cool, oh wow, okay, oh,
that's a lot of money about?
Yeah, like, oh, what is this? So this is actually something that we could do now. And it's like, yeah, so and like, and I like, and everybody that helped me with it, all my friends that came on and helped keep me awake and cognizant and and keep everything entertaining so we could do all that shit.
That's always important when you're doing a long stream like that. Not that I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah, it's it's definitely, and like nothing I've done, honestly, like nothing I've done and nothing I currently do is ever by myself. Like it's like I said, like even from the start, like I would not, like without the support of like angry individuals in my chat finding me and just being like, yeah, you're saying the shit that needs to be fucking said, and it's just like, I will not rest until like somebody bigger than you fucking hears you. And I'm just like,
your community also part of my community? Because I get a lot of that too.
Probably. But
like,
yeah,
finally, I mean, like, yes, thank you.
Yeah, hold on to those people, man. Like
I try, man. I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing here, but I do try, man. I'm so appreciative of my community. It's like it's just so wild to me. Like, sorry to kind of like rant a bit on my own here, but every day it still doesn't kind of feel real that there's this community and people who follow and like will challenge points and say, oh, you know what, I don't agree with you on this point, but this other point, yeah, I absolutely agree. Or, yeah, thank you so much for this. Or, oh yeah, I didn't know about this, I've learned so much from your channel. Like these are real people, and it's a real like small but hopefully continuing to grow community. And I know that I see some people comment a lot and some just kind of come and go. Others don't seem to comment anymore. I hope they're doing well, but like it's still just so real to me that like this all started out of just a need to vent about so many things early on in the pandemic. And now I actually have this little community that can help spread the word and help raise money for mutual aid society. Like it's all so incredible, but it just doesn't feel real. It's almost like a weird dream or like a fugue state, and I'm just here like, is any of this real? Am I talking to you? Is even this real? Like, what the fuck?
Just
like,
I would say just hold on to that energy and make it and let it keep you humble, like that's because like like I've always encouraged my community, especially those people who were more like hoorah militant, like with militant energy, let's say, to challenge me on shit and check me on my nonsense and check me if I'm slipping and shit like that, and they do. And I cannot and I'm I grow every day, and it's once again through their support,
Hey,
through
if you're
the
not
various
growing
mods that
and
I have.
like,
And
if you're not growing and learning, like what are you doing, right? Like,
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you can't. Yeah, if you do that, you're just. Oh, never mind. I don't want to say it because you're probably gonna have people on.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, I get it,
But
but like, yeah, I get what you mean though, because actually this happened with an online friend of mine. He's Tunisian, and I initially made a video about some news from Tunisia. And he and like one other Tunisian who found my video said, actually, this is fucking wrong. Check yourself. And I was like, oh, well, you know what? Actually, like, I would love to know. Please tell me. And my Tunisian friend did. And so I made a second video basically saying, hey, everyone. So I was actually very wrong yesterday. And so thank you to my Tunisian friend for calling me out. Here's the actual fuller, more detailed, and far more complex than I've realized story. So it was a point of growth and also like actual proof that I can admit when I'm wrong. And then there's like the video did better. And also a lot of people who hadn't even been to the community before were saying, thank you so much for making this and covering this story, because no one else is. I'm like, this is what I love, even though it's just small and I may never see these commenters again. It's that, that
no,
little bit of hope of like, thank you for telling our story, because no one else does.
mm-hmm.
And I just like that. Like, it's kind of sad, but I also love that, like, and not like the narcissistic way of like, oh, thank you for noticing me, but in the sense of like, that I'm doing the right thing. And I'm hearing that from just, in many cases, total strangers on the internet. And they're saying how it's been a positive influence on them. And that just makes me feel really good.
Yeah. As long as, and that's the biggest thing. And like, I think that any of us who get on a soapbox and have, people listen to us, I think that it's important for us to realize that like a lot of people, like myself, like looking back on when I was just an observer, when I was just in the community, and and how I had a rude awakening where I was just like, oh, these people are saying some shit. But it was, once again, it was just me projecting what I was just projecting how I felt onto them. But at the same time, it helped, like, I still realized that, they still care, and it helps, and it helps, it helped keep me motivated and active to keep doing the shit that I'm doing. And building a community to, and really taking what they're telling you to heart, is something that, just keep doing that, man. Like, you just gotta just let it keep you, make sure it keeps you humble, and make sure that, when they say you're an asshole, like, take a step back and realize, or take a step back and be like, why am I the asshole?
Unlike the subject of today's video about James Lindsay picking Twitter fights at the fucking Auschwitz Museum, it's like, dude, as some people, I just can't believe they're real. But another question I have for you that, like, we've kind of not exactly danced around, but like, we just sort of keep coming back to certain elements of it, but we haven't asked it directly. What was it that actually, or who was it rather, who radicalized you to become like this, like, hardcore, outspoken leftist and activist?
My son.
Really?
Yeah. So when it finally, like, clicked in my head that, like, we're gonna, like, my wife's bringing life into the world, like, we're gonna have a kid.
That revelation kind of hit you.
Yeah. And like, realistically, like, for me, it was like, what is the future going to look like for this kid? Because I never really wanted to have kids. And
Wow,
it was
and you still had one. Okay.
I mean, my partner and I, we've been together, like we met when we were like 12 and 13 years old respectively, and we've been
Wow.
dating since I was a sophomore in high school. So like we've been together for fucking ever. I'm 33 now, so like we've technically been alive, or we've been together longer in our lives than we have actually been apart. Like so
Wow, that's impressive, dude.
so yeah, so like, you know, we were having a kid, and you know, being like watching, you know, like I said, BreadTube and all that stuff. You know, like it was like, yeah, like this is how I feel, and this all makes sense, and like, you know, like, oh, I'm glad I understand this stuff, right? But I didn't really, wasn't taking it like super serious. And then in combination of educating myself on this stuff and being like, okay, climate change is shitty, you know, inequality is, you know, fucking, it's getting worse. Trump became president, like all of these things, you know, it was like, what kind of, do I want to look at my son, you know, 20 years down the line and be like, yeah, your turn, you do something with it, in the same way that like all of our parents did? Or do I want to like be able to be like, at least I tried, you know, like I'm sorry, I'm sorry, kiddo, I tried, you
I
know.
raged against the dying of the light.
Yeah, like, you know, like I'm so sorry that it wasn't enough, you know. And you know, but you know, like
you want to try and do what I'm doing, which is ensure that when the kids eventually descend into barbarism, we're not the ones put at the wall, at least at first, right?
First, yeah, exactly. But yeah, and so like it was basically my kid. Like that's really what inspired me to like get super active into this, is because it was just like, and like getting as deep into it, both offline once again and online. And yeah, like that's, honestly, it's for BabyZotz. Like that's what it's for. Like it's I hope that, you know, by him existing and being surrounded by this messaging, that he takes it in, like he absorbs some of this, and he doesn't, you know, become that he can see some hope in some shit, you know. Like I want him to, you know, hopefully like see, you know, cooking food and feeding houseless people, you know, and like having that memory and like being a part of that, you know, like being like he contributed. Like I can be like, look, kid, I have actual VODs saved on the computer of you 2 years old putting flour in a bowl for bread that was baked to be delivered to food insecure people, you know what I mean? And like, you know, this is people that like, you know, here's artwork that people did of you because, you know, whatever. And like, you know, like this is the shit that you were a part of, or, you know, like taking him to like his first rally, and like, you know, getting the kid surrounded in an environment that a lot of us didn't have. And because it's like a lot of us are just barely finding out pathways and methods for the solutions to the fucking bullshit we face every day, you know? And hopefully I can help create an environment where my kid has some, you know, can at least see entrances to the pathways of, you know, of answers, you know, of like solutions and shit like that, you know. That's and so yeah, like that's
who knows what the future may hold in terms of technological developments or new societal changes. And so maybe the young people come up with some new idea that really works or gains traction or something. Like you never know what happens. Like you've kind of touched on this before with how, like, you know, with the IWW, and hey, look, I'm kind of online, I can do this thing, and like, okay, yeah, that's nice. To kind of dismiss it out of hand, but it proved to be a very useful and relevant tool to aid in the material benefit of your local IWW chapter. So, you know, there may be things that happen in the future, or things we're not looking at or realizing just now. Maybe we'll find out in a year or two. Like, who knows what the future holds, right?
Yeah. I mean, I hope I plan for the worst and hope for the best, you know, and all I can do is
words to fucking live by, man. That's what I do.
Yeah, and all I can do is try to like, hopefully, like I said, just I'm doing it for my kid. And I really started taking this, let me put it this way. I started taking it seriously for my kid. And, and like, that's still like part of like the core of like why I do this. Um, both the stuff online and the stuff offline. Um, but I will say that a lot of the things that just keep me from like just abandoning, like getting frustrated with the online political discourse shit that's going on, right? That we, for those of us who are exist in this space, getting frustrated and not just fucking being like, yo, fuck you all, writing a manifesto, just like dumping a bunch of fucking backroom secrets, dumping Discord logs, doing all this fucking shit, and just telling a bunch of people and then just piecing out. Like, like it's just like, no, I can still, there's still utility in this. And I still believe in, I still believe in online activism, and I still see the merits of it. And there are people who don't have any other way to be active, except for online, and or like by using the internet or being inside certain communities and stuff like that, whether it's through Discord or Twitch or YouTube, what have you. These, I'm very fortunate that I have a space where a lot of individuals can come together and talk about how to make things better with each other, that they wouldn't have had an opportunity to do so in their community, or because they don't necessarily even have like a stable home, and the internet is the only time that they can actually like reach out and talk to people without fear of being kicked out of their house because they're a dirty commie, and
or because they're gay or trans or something like that. Like I know plenty of people who are out online, but they're very much in the closet in real life.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, I definitely understand that. Like it's yeah, so it's, I just so it's me leaving. I remember.
Oh boy,
So
story time.
Okay, so when I was at like my point of like peak frustration, and I was just like, what the fuck? Why am I doing this anymore? Like, I have a full-time job, my wife misses me, like her and I haven't been able to like see each other, because when I come home from work, I'm on stream. When I'm not and when I'm not streaming, I'm reading a book, or like I'm trying to like type something up, or like I'm whatever it is. And I make time for my son, but I don't make time for her. And then it's like all, and then like trying to juggle at the time like organizing my workplace and doing all these things. And it's just like, why? And then like watching fucking Twitch politics like circle itself down the fucking drain, and like watching like content creators on YouTube just fly off the fucking rails, and like watching people like start orbiting around some of the most like least productive parts of this space. And I'm just like, this isn't for me, fuck this. Like, I'm fucking done. Right. And I messaged a bunch of people, like a bunch of my friends on here, and I was just like, I think I'm gonna nuke my channel. I think I'm just gonna fucking just upend it, and I think I'm done, blah blah blah, right? And a lot of them were like, yeah, I get it, I'm kind of in the same headspace. And like I got other messages that were just like, like, do you, but I honestly think that you still provide like a voice or a message of that still needs to be heard, blah blah blah. And then like none of those hit, right? And then Mildred sent me a text. It's like, why are you gonna be so dramatic? And I was just like,
Oh,
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So like that
called out
called
by the
called
thought
out.
slime.
Yeah. Yeah. They were like, why you gotta be so dramatic? And I was just like, oh fuck. Like that was like, it was like one of the shortest replies I had gotten back. It was like one of like it was just like this, what everyone else was sending me like like we're having back and forth conversations, paragraphs and shit. And then like there's just like, yeah, like stop crying, like, you know, like get over it, like type shit. And like that's the type of stuff that I appreciate, you know, like that's I was like, okay, all right, yeah, let me take a minute, let me think about this, let me see what I can actually do, you know. And yeah, so it's like, you
There
know,
you
it's
go,
kind of led
folks.
to like
It's
this whole,
official. Zotz is still with us purely because Thought Slime said, "Why you gotta be dramatic?"
yeah, why you gotta be so dramatic? Yeah,
Oh,
that should always make me laugh. I was just like, huh, yeah,
they
I
got a
guess.
point.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's like you
Yeah.
got me there.
So then I ended up restructuring to like what I'm doing now, or what I'm trying to do now, you know. And you know, I'm making mistakes, and I'm learning, and I'm doing stuff, and the community's been really supportive of this new transition.
Which
And
is great.
I'm just hoping more and more people kind of like jive with it, and you know, get involved with it, and um just get inspired to, like, you know, bake some fucking cookies, and like, you know, just
Bake some
just
cookies.
go
Start a
out.
veggie patch. Go outside. Touch grass.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, just do something. Like you know, like it's or you know, like I don't even know. Like I don't want to say like, because like I'm also a huge proponent of, like, once again, like there's a lot of stuff, and I definitely respect people who like were like their ability for activism, for whatever the reason, whether it be disability or safety reasons, whatever, has to be online. Yo, I like, that's legit. That's still valid. And there are ways that you can still contribute to
Thank you
change.
for doing what you can, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, like, hey, if you want to, if you're mad and you feel, and you want to like act, and you feel hopeless, and you want to like actually contribute to something, and you want to do something, you know, fucking come to my stream and ask me out directly, and I'll send you just some shit. You know, some of the things I can think of off the top of my head is like anything with like there's like if you want to get passionate about prison abolition, or you know, something like that, or like doing things with the prisoner work, I recommend looking into IWalk, or it stands for the Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee, and doing stuff with that. Figure that's all over the fucking country. You know, if you have if you're for trans, if you want to help out with doing trans for trans issues, I definitely recommend. And if like trans and prison stuff is your thing, I say, you know, look into doing going into Black and Pink, and doing stuff with them. You know, it's aside from that, you know, being able to do foundational work on the computer, you know, a lot of the stuff, you know, answering emails, getting information to people so that people can do the offline stuff is imperative. Like, is like people, able-bodied people, for as much fucking, you know, like, you know, gumption, whatever the fuck, you know, you want to say it, for whatever that gets them fucking going or whatever, if the framework isn't in place, you know, there's
You're sitting there pent up, right?
yeah, it's just if there's no foundation, nothing can be built, right? And the foundation comes with fucking research, and you know, just doing the stuff, doing the office shit, the, you know, doing shit that isn't leaving and going out and putting feet in the street. You know, it's stuff that happens inside first. And so like, you know, there is in my opinion, a larger need for people who are okay with doing and occupying this space and doing the work that needs to be done in this space, this virtual space, online, you know, whatever it is, whatever your talents are on here, you know, we need you, you know, even if it is just like educating people on how to or like educating leftists who are ignorant on disability issues or are ignorant on what it is to be in a very rural super conservative town where if they found out that you own a copy of fucking State and Revolution, that you know you can literally be fucking like, or you're ousted as a communist, like you can literally just be like kicked out of town, right? Or like become like a fucking pariah. So it's like there are genuine concerns. And you know, if you know anyone on here who considers themselves a content creator who truly wants to see some change or contribute to that shit, they should be giving you answers on how to contribute and helping you get and reinforcing your desire for committing to actual change, and not just keeping you around for your $5 subscription or for your Twitch Prime sub. You know, they should be, or for your engagement, you know, they should be, in my opinion, giving you the tools that you ask for to actually solve the problems. Because I don't know about you, but I look forward to a day when I can go back to stop giving a shit. That's what I want. I want to go back to fucking, you know, sitting on my couch and playing video games all day. And like, you know, I don't want to fucking, you think I want to have books on my shelf? I got books.
I like books. I like
books.
Reading.
I don't want to
fucking reading a book. Fine, give me your books. Jesus Christ.
I'm fucking dyslexic. This shit sucks.
Yeah, fine. I'll come down to Milwaukee and grab them from you. But no, like
I mean, I'm just saying, you know, like I have to read. You know, it's just like,
no, I get it. Like basically pre-pandemic, my reading list was, oh yeah, here's these like older books that I really wanted to get through, including some of the Russian greats. I want to read more Dostoevsky and Chekhov and stuff. And then like 2020 was like, I need to read up on like my theory and leftist thought and why America's collapsing and neoliberalism and imperialism. So like it was a very dark year and a half of reading. Worthwhile though. I read some very good books. So yeah, I'm definitely kind of in the same boat with you where like I would love that if in the future things go so well that I'm ranting about things that ultimately don't fucking matter. Like, I'm bothered by people wearing floral prints in autumn. That's clearly a spring thing. Get it together.
Yeah.
Like, I would love if that could be my channel. Like, grumpy old bothered boy. Like that. That would be great if I was like, you know, it's like, what's this? You know, like the cost of inflation is too damn high on like coffee. Like, just make me a proper cup of coffee. No one makes better coffee than the Cubans and the Vietnamese, okay? And they're communists. Like, fucking get with it. Like, I would love if that could be my rants as opposed to like, here's some fucking ghoul and it's like, I can't believe this ghoul exists and says these things, or I'm really tired of people thinking this when the actual other thing is to blame, or like whatever it is that I usually rant about on the channel. I would love if I don't have to do that anymore. And it's more like, I'm bothered by the latest Spider-Man movie. And I know I could do that right now, but I don't want to, because it's like, all this stuff kind of just sits within me of like, and that's why I started it, right? It was basically, there's just too much stuff inside and I didn't always want to write out an article or like send it to the local newspaper for op-ed or something. So I just started recording random videos and people said like, and I first only released them on Facebook, and then some friends said, dude, no, come on. Like, you got to start a YouTube channel. So I did. Bo saw the parody video and he's like, hey, this is actually pretty great. And then it's like, oh, okay, I have nearly like 1,000 subscribers in what technically amounts to overnight. It was like over the course of like 2 months or something. I was like, all right, that's a solid little audience. Should maybe try and retain it. And here we are. And now I'm just kind of like, all right, I still don't fully know what the fuck this is, but people are along for the ride and I appreciate every single one of them. And just I'm venting, but also trying to do good deeds and also trying to bring awareness and education about things. Cause like, ultimately I'm a teacher at heart, really. which is why this thing's like, hey, what would you do in like a post-scarcity society, and if all your needs were met, what would you really like to do? I'd love to be a teacher. I'd love to teach kids about like not just, language, sociology, the humanities. I'd love to teach them about history, because history to me is very important, and it provides a lot of clues and context for why the current world is the way it is. And it's why I really dislike when people make, like, I don't even want to call it historic revisionism, but just like historical ignorance. And we see that a lot, especially here in Canada. I know it's very common everywhere else, but like really our national mythos is such fucking bullshit, and I can prove it historically. But it's just like,
isn't Canada's motto just basically, hey, we're not the United States? Isn't that
actually
isn't
no?
that
Our official motto is peace, order, and good government, which we have none of, by the way.
Yeah.
No, but like in case you don't know, which if you don't, like, that's understandable. No one really gives a shit about Canada, not even us Canadians. The idea of our founding is, you know what? They came together with the vision to secure the rest of British North America from like it's whatever they want it to be. So American expansion, or in the interest of like literally just in the interest of serving empire. Like there's some really weird, stupid stuff. But we try and make it about, we all realized we were stronger together. And I'm like, it was imperialism. It was just absolute imperialism. They wanted to secure half of the continent for British imperial ambitions. That's literally what it was. And people try and make like some of these people and historic events into like, oh yeah, this was actually really great. I'm like, it really wasn't. It had to do with this stuff. And like, we never talk about what leads up to what we call Confederation, which is the birth of Canada in 1867. We all know it. We know the date. We fucking celebrate it every year on July the 1st. And we know like our first prime minister and like some of the more important ones after that. But how we get to that point, nearly everyone in Canada is super ignorant about what leads to the colonial settler state of Canada. And it's actually a fascinating story. Like if you just look at it historically, people say, oh, history's boring. Canadian history is so dull and boring. Y'all were taught wrong, because I had some amazing history teachers that pointed out how just terrible some of this stuff was. We do not talk about or acknowledge the 200-year history of slavery in British North America before it became Canada, because, you see, technically it ended before Canada became a thing. So Canada's never had slavery. Wink. Like, it's so fucking bad. But it also explains so much about why certain things happened the way they did. And this is one of the things I do talk about at length, of just like trying to clear this up of, I'm bothered by historical ignorance about Canada. So here's like my, at this point, like 50 different fucking videos on it. I've even covered French imperialism in West Africa. Like, so, that for me is something that's very important, just to try and also like educate people, but also give them some elements of hope. Like in the wake of the Rittenhouse ruling, I was like, so, I know we're all feeling a little dejected, and I'm not going to take that away from people. It's good to kind of feel these things, the highs and the lows, but bigger picture, we are still making gains. Here's some gains you may not have heard of in the past, like just trying to do these things where I feel it might be appropriate or relevant. But overall, I know it doesn't make for an entirely cohesive channel. It's not like, I talk about one thing and one thing only.
Your channel's your perspective, and I think, and it's about creating a conversation.
My channel is my rants. Like that's what it is.
And it's for creating conversation. Yeah. No, I dig it. I think it's good. I mean, honestly, just making making something that somebody else can like feel relief that they're not the only ones thinking that, you know what I mean, it's such a good feeling, is good, so I think I think you're doing good. I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
Just keep don't be afraid of just like asking people to like come on and interacting with us, because we're all just nerds here. We're all just trying to figure this shit out, and we're all just trying to make the best of a worst case scenario. But yeah,
I agree, and I think that's actually a pretty good point to end it on, actually. We've been at this for nearly 2 hours. Final fun question. Which rich person do we eat first?
I don't know. Are there any rich Canadian Mormons?
No, but if you want to, if you want to be delightfully ironic, one of the wealthiest people in Canada is a guy who runs a grocery chain. It's the Weston family. So like in Canada, it would be deliciously ironic if we ate Galen Weston first.
So there, yeah. I would say that like, yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't want. So like I'm I'm trained as a chef. Like I cook. The whole thing is food. So for me, I'm thinking like, who would I want to eat and why? Like, hey, I'm telling you, like any chef worth their salt, has thought about this question at least once or twice. I swear.
Getting some real dark chef territory here.
Yeah. Like, hey, there's a reason there's a reason why they call it long pig, there's
tastes like pork.
But yeah, I would say I mean any I would say, here's the thing, I'm not going to say a particular person, but if they fall within the range of like 30 to I'd say 25 to 35, maybe 25 to 40. I feel like 50, it would get that's too old. You would want them to like not be super fit, but you want like a nice marbling on that. You know what I'm saying? So whatever billionaire falls within that range, that will work up. We'll work down from there.
You know what? When the revolution comes, we're definitely coming to you first. Like, all right, so in what's the Wagyu beef of the rich?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do like you think about like a billionaire from the 80s who's like their body is just like, or a billionaire that made their wealth from like the early 80s into the 90s and stuff. Their whole body is just like jacked up from fucking like all the drugs and just debauchery they've gotten up to, like it's like,
so
and then
you take a bite of them and you get a residual cocaine high.
Well, yeah, or just like all the fucking money they pumped into themselves to just keep them going, so they can just keep doing like, just be like perpetual villains into their fucking like 90s and shit like that. All the mysterious rich people fucking treatments and shit that they get that we can't afford. Like, yeah, like that type of shit. Yeah. Like I don't want to, like, you don't really want to eat that, right? Like I want to keep it. There's a range, not necessarily a particular person. If we're gonna eat them, you said eat. Yeah, you said eat. I know. So like that's what I'm giving you.
Yeah. Okay. No. You know what? I appreciate it. And with that, I think we're done here. Hi, Bother Brigade. Thank you once again for tuning into another episode of Progressive Profiles, and thank you to Camazotz for coming on, especially on rather short notice when that was all done. And as you can see by the rundown in this video, we had a lot to talk about, but I hope everyone enjoyed. Please let me know your thoughts or your favorite parts in the comment section down below. And once again, if you want to show support for me and this channel and this project, there's a Patreon which you can support. And if you think other people should watch this, then yeah, feel free to like and share it around if that's something you feel like doing. But again, I also want to stress the importance of the fact that I still can't believe that I have patrons. And yeah, they're the ones who actually make all of this possible and fun to do. And hopefully we're going to get a new one of these soon. And that would again be purely because of all the patrons I have. Your support, I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. It absolutely means the world to me. Thank you so much for supporting me and this channel. And thank you to all of you who watched this episode, especially right here to the end. I well and truly appreciate it. But the fact that it was a 2-hour episode and Camazotz and I still have a lot more to talk about and be bothered by, I think that's definitely what's bothering me today.